My partner of 5 years told me, "I'm no longer drawn to you. I require a dominant type." I responded, "I get it." Then I took the advancement she hoped her new dominant boyfriend would secure at our firm. When she spotted me in the executive suite, her expression turned ashen, as she grasped that I had become her superior. My partner of 5 years, Sarah, broke off our romance last Tuesday. We shared a home, so she had the courtesy to do it in person, but that was the sole courtesy she displayed. She had me sit on the couch in the living area of the home I possess, and delivered a monologue she had obviously practiced. She said she cared for me as an individual, but she wasn't romantically attached anymore. She mentioned that for some time she'd sensed a void, and then she dropped the devastating statement. "I'm simply not interested in you physically now, Alex," she stated, gazing at me with a kind of detached sympathy. "I've come to see that I want a genuine leader, someone who commands, a real authority figure." The offense was so straightforward, so patronizing, that I didn't feel fury initially. It was simply enlightening. I've always been a reserved individual. I'm not the most vocal person around. I don't boast, I don't need to control discussions. I guide through demonstration via expertise. I resolve issues, I construct systems that function. I had always believed she comprehended and appreciated that quality in me. Evidently, I was mistaken. She viewed my subtle assurance as frailty. I didn't debate with her. I didn't become protective. I simply observed her and anticipated the next revelation, since I knew more was coming. She interpreted my quietness as encouragement to proceed. She admitted she had been developing feelings for another person. A colleague from our organization, Brad. For background, Sarah, Brad, and I all are employed at the same sizable tech company. I'm a lead software engineer. I create the foundational structures for our toughest assignments. Sarah handles projects, so our roles overlap somewhat. And Brad, he's a top marketing executive. He's precisely the sort you'd imagine when hearing dominant said seriously. He's boisterous, boldly self-assured, dons stylish outfits, and excels at delivering polished talks. He's pure charm. The depth, though, has always appeared dubious to me. Sarah rambled about Brad's goals and his relentless energy. And then she unveiled the true essence. For the past 2 months, a significant new role had been available at the firm. Head of Unified Operations. It's a major elevation, a command position meant to connect the engineering groups, project oversight, and marketing tactics. The new head would basically oversee all 3 of our areas. Sarah informed me with a complacent thrill that Brad was the frontrunner. She confessed she'd been assisting him refine his submissions, supplying him confidential details from the project side to bolster his proposal. She was fully committed to his triumph. She envisioned him landing this as their springboard. They were set to become the fresh, influential duo in the workplace. As she explained all this, I merely sat there. And when she concluded, after she had fully explained why I fell short for her, I regarded her and stated, in an entirely steady tone, "I comprehend." She appeared somewhat startled by my absence of reaction, but she accepted it as agreement. She mentioned she'd require a week or 2 to locate a new residence. I simply agreed with a nod. Here's what she was unaware of. While she and Brad schemed his ascent, upper management had been harboring grave reservations about him. They perceived what I did. Plenty of flair, but little substance. His approaches shone in a slideshow, but they frequently overlooked key engineering constraints, which my group then rushed to correct. Due to this, roughly a month prior, the executive VP, a guy named Victor, had discreetly contacted me. He explained that although I wasn't the clear pick from a marketing angle, I was the sole contender who really grasped how all the company's components truly interlocked. He stated the organization required a guide who could produce outcomes, not merely assurances. He proposed the head role to me. I was reluctant. I relished the practical tasks. I'm a designer, a creator. I wasn't certain I desired to enter upper management and intrigue. I informed Victor the first needed time to ponder it. I didn't bring it up to Sarah, as our bond was already strained, and I didn't wish to introduce a complicated professional element. My reluctance, my wish to evaluate logically, was exactly what she perceived as a deficit in drive. But following her address, after she labeled me inadequate and flaunted her new leader before me, all my doubts evaporated. Declining the elevation now would affirm her whole distorted story. Embracing it was the sole option remaining. It was no longer about professional growth. It was about dignity. The following day, I entered Victor's space. He glanced up, astonished to see me. "Alex," he remarked. "What's up?" "Victor," I answered. "I thought over your proposal. If it's still available, I agree. A broad grin of ease appeared on his features. That's the finest update I've received this month, he said, clasping my hand solidly. We were optimistic you'd decide yes. The formal notice will circulate in a firm-wide message on Monday morning. Glad to have you, Head. I passed the remainder of the day in a composed concentration. When I arrived home, Sarah was present, already gathering some items. She was singing softly. She informed me she planned a festive meal with Brad on Monday evening, post the major reveal. She even dared to tap my arm and say, "No concerns, Alex. I've already discussed with Brad. Once he's head, he'll ensure you're placed on some key fresh initiatives. He truly appreciates your engineering abilities." I simply regarded her and nodded. That's considerate, I replied. This weekend was peaceful. I've shifted her belongings from the primary bedroom to the spare one. She assumes it's merely me wanting distance. She remains happily oblivious to the message set to reach the whole firm's inboxes at 9 on Monday. She believes she's aligning with an emerging talent. She has no clue she's on the verge of meeting her superior. Update 1. Monday dawn came with an odd feeling of certainty. The vibe in the residence was heavy with an uneasy, strained quiet. Sarah, though, appeared to be soaring on a wave of arrogant contentment. She was chattier than in ages, rambling about the festive meal she and Brad had arranged for that night. While preparing for the office, she positioned in the bathroom entrance as I shaved and offered unasked guidance. Alex, she began, her voice oozing false worry. You're an excellent engineer, likely the top in the firm, but you lack that command presence. You ought to observe Brad. See how he dominates a space. Could benefit you eventually. I merely cleaned my blade, dried my face, and viewed her via the reflection. I'll remember that, I stated. We traveled to the workplace in different vehicles, a habit we'd begun weeks back as our gap widened. I reached my station at 8:30, organized some outdated documents, and geared up for the day. Sarah was at her spot, conversing animatedly on the call, undoubtedly with Brad. At precisely 9 a.m., a fresh email alert appeared on my display. Did on all. The title was straightforward. Notice, new head of unified operations. I didn't access it. I had no need. Instead, I observed Sarah. I witnessed her open the message, her features radiant with victorious anticipation. I saw her gaze skim the initial sentence, and then I observed as all color vanished from her visage. She shifted from vibrant and beaming to a ghostly, pale in roughly 3 seconds. Her lips parted faintly. She blinked and rescanned the message. Then she did it once more from afar in the office. I noticed her fingers begin to shake. She gradually raised her head, and her eyes swept the area until they fixed on mine. I didn't grin. I didn't boast. I simply maintained her stare with an entirely impartial look. The view of me serene and resuming tasks appeared to shatter her daze. She leaped from her seat and strode toward my station. Multiple people turned to observe her. She advanced with such intensity that she was almost quivering with fury. She halted before my station, her hands balled. What is this? She whispered sharply, her tone unsteady and quaking. This is a prank, correct? How did you pull this off? You took this from him. Her volume was increasing, and she was creating a spectacle. Folks were staring outright now. This was the instant. This was where the fresh hierarchy would be established. I gradually rose, gazing down at her since she was shorter by a bit. I maintained my tone soft, compelling her to incline slightly to listen. A minor dominance tactic. Sarah, I said steadily, this isn't the moment or location for this talk. My entrance is always available, but I anticipate professional behavior from you. We have a project update session at 10. I'll meet you in the primary meeting space then. We can address your issues regarding the project flow there. Color surged back to her features in a heated, irate blush. She was mute. She had approached to challenge her former partner, the one she had recently called feeble. She was now being spoken to as an underling by her superior. She lingered a few more moments, stumbling over words, before realizing everyone observed her improper eruption. She pivoted and rushed back to her spot. Elsewhere in the structure, I could only picture the collapse Brad was experiencing. His whole approach, his entire persona at the firm was founded on boldness and the image of being the successor. Now, he hadn't merely lost the elevation, he lost it to me. That night, the clash at the residence was precisely as anticipated. She awaited me upon entry. She charged me with being a scheming, spiteful deceiver. She claimed I had orchestrated this to embarrass her. I allowed her to release until she exhausted. When she concluded, I finally responded. I didn't do this against you, Sarah. I did it for me. You clarified what you seek in a companion. You said you desired a leader, a commander, one who assumes control. You chose based on your view of power. It appears you supported the incorrect contender. I moved by her and headed to the kitchen for water. You're accurate on one aspect though, I added, facing away. The situation has shifted. It's utterly unsuitable for you to reside here now. This is my property. I require you to secure a new spot. You have 7 days. The defiance left her then, substituted by emerging dread. The truth of her circumstances was overwhelming her simultaneously. Her leader companion had faltered. She had forfeited the influential duo vision. And now she was forfeiting her dwelling. Her scheme hadn't just collapsed, it had rebounded in the most dramatic fashion possible. It's been 14 days since my elevation, and the consequences have been both expected and, somehow, gratifying. The initial week focused on solidifying my command, and Sarah and Brad didn't simplify it. But their efforts to weaken me only reinforced my standing. My initial formal action as head was to summon a gathering with the leaders of all sectors now under my oversight. This naturally encompassed Sarah for her project group and Brad for marketing tactics. I aimed to examine the full project lineup to spot dangers and prospects. Brad entered the gathering with his typical strut, but it was fragile. He attempted to behave as though unaltered. Sarah positioned at the table's end, mute, avoiding my gaze. The primary subject was a key new endeavor that Brad had promoted for months. It was his project, the foundation of his bid for the head position. Sarah had been its strongest advocate, guaranteeing her managers favored it. When Brad presented, he delivered his standard performance. He guided us through a glossy display packed with striking jargon and hopeful estimates. Upon completion, he surveyed the room, awaiting praise. Instead, I commented, "Appreciate it, Brad," I said balanced. "The estimates are definitely bold. Yet, I've used the weekend assessing the essential framework needed for this tactic. Could you go to slide 17, detailing the information merging method?" He struggled with the control, a hint of doubt on his features. He displayed the slide. As I view it, I proceeded, addressing everyone. "Your tactic depends on instant data alignment between our old stock setup and the fresh online analysis system. However, the old setup's interface has a strict limit of 1,000 queries hourly. Your outline, as shown, would demand at least 10,000 queries hourly in busy periods. The setup in its present form can't handle this. It will collapse." I wasn't confrontational. I merely presented realities. I outlined information. I revealed the fundamental defect in his whole tactic, a defect any with profound engineering insight would notice, but which he, in his marketing-centric realm, had fully disregarded. The space was hushed. Brad's features reddened. He had no response. He mumbled about his engineering advisors confirming it would function. "Then your advisors erred," I said plainly. "We must pause this endeavor until a thorough structural evaluation. I need a feasible strategy on my desk in 14 days, not a slide set. Sarah, kindly have your group reduce priority on all assets for this and shift to the Aurora endeavor right away." Sarah merely agreed with a nod, her features ashen. She had to remain and openly disassemble the exact endeavor she had backed, the one meant to be her and Brad's path to success. In a single 10-minute dialogue, I had uncovered Brad's inadequacy and reaffirmed authority over the firm's path, all by just fulfilling my duties. Their subsequent action was to attempt gathering allies. Sarah started grumbling to her office pals, those she dined with, about how difficult and uneasy I was rendering matters. She strongly suggested I was fostering an adverse work setting, using my fresh role to penalize her for our split. It recoiled dramatically. The individuals in our firm, particularly in engineering, prioritized skill above everything. They had all witnessed Brad's glossy displays and had all managed the chaotic truth of his defective schemes. They admired my efforts. They observed me terminate a poor endeavor and preserve the firm vast sums in squandered assets. They didn't perceive a resentful former partner. They saw a skilled guide reorganizing. Sarah's grievances merely rendered her appear improper and trivial. Then arrived the really underhanded ploy. Beaten in work, they opted to assault my standing. One of my prior endeavors, an intricate program revision I had personally designed, was in its last rollout stage. Late one evening last week, someone accessed the system and modified a vital code segment. It was a nuanced alteration, One that wouldn't trigger instant failure but would generate a severe data distortion problem about 7 days later. It was crafted to appear as if I had planted a delayed issue in the system just prior to my elevation. It was a straightforward bid to render me seem unskilled to upper management. It was an awkward, frantic action. The next dawn, in a standard review, I promptly detected the irregularity in the code. It wasn't my creation. The reasoning was careless. I didn't alarm. I didn't even inform anyone initially. Instead, I proceeded straight to our firm's digital security records. Each modification, each access is monitored and dated. It required under 60 minutes to locate. The improper change occurred at 10:47 p.m. the prior night. It was recorded under temporary admin rights, and the network address from the access led straight to a terminal on the 4th level. Brad's terminal. I now possessed solid, irrefutable evidence of intentional business disruption. He wasn't merely inadequate. He was a hazard, and I had him. Final update. It has been 90 days since my elevation, and the concluding elements of this episode have settled. The tale of Brad and Sarah at our firm is concluded. After uncovering the sabotage proof, I didn't challenge Brad or Sarah personally. That would have been disorderly and improper. Instead, I behaved like the head they charged me with not being. I assembled my proof, the security records displaying the network address, the timing of the improper modification, the initial code against the changed one, and a short objective overview of the possible harm it would have inflicted. Then, I arranged a session with my superior, Victor, and the HR chief. I presented the proof, composed and impartially. I didn't portray it as a private matter. I portrayed it as a grave and intentional violation of business protection and work ethics. I informed them, a staff member in a high position deliberately attempted to disrupt a vital firm endeavor. This poses a threat to our operations. The response was precisely what you'd anticipate from a large enterprise confronting an evident internal danger. HR initiated a complete official probe right away. With the electronic proof, it was straightforward. Brad was summoned to a session with HR and legal. He evidently attempted denial initially, but when they showed him the records linking the act to his terminal at a period when cameras captured him present, his account crumbled. He was dismissed for immediate effect. He was led out by guards, holding his items in a box. Termination for severe wrongdoing is a stain on a profession, one tough to overcome. The probe inevitably reached Sarah. Though no direct evidence she joined the disruption, her recognized connection with Brad, her open rage on my elevation day, her gripes to peers about me generating an adverse setting depicted a distinct image. She was deemed part of a trend of improper conduct adding to a harmful work climate. She wasn't dismissed, but her outcome was nearly harsher. She received a last formal caution and was moved sideways to another unit, an administrative obscurity of the firm managing outdated clients. Her project handler title stayed, but the tasks were insignificant. Her professional advancement at the firm was forever halted. She was work isolated, in a stagnant role, deprived of any sway or status. The influential duo was done. Brad was jobless and shamed. Sarah was marginalized and embarrassed. The rumors, as usual, completed the narrative. Brad is supposedly still fighting to land a new spot. The account of his departure from our firm has naturally spread in our field. Sarah endured another 30 days in her fresh position before she silently left. She couldn't manage the everyday shame of her reduction or the stares from past peers who knew everything. The latest I learned, she had relocated from the area. As for me, I'm succeeding. My sector is more productive than before. We've effectively started 2 significant endeavors, and group spirit is elevated. The admiration I receive from peers is gained not via boisterous speech or hollow appeal, but via consistent guidance and demonstrated outcomes. My efforts stand alone. Reflecting, Sarah was correct on one point. She said she required a leader, but her notion of that was entirely incorrect. She was attracted to the noisiest, most showy figure present, confusing his arrogance for power. She didn't grasp that true power, true guidance, isn't about the clamor you create. It's about the bases you establish, the challenges you address, and the subtle assurance that stems from knowing you are skilled and master of your fate. She sought her leader and ultimately, she discovered one. She just never recognized it was the man she abandoned.